Hey, Dad, thanks for sitting down with me for this explainer today. You know how whenever we go on road trips, we're always staring out the window at the mountains? We kind of just see them as these massive, immovable rocks just sitting there looking pretty in the background. But, well, I was diving into some research today and I stumbled across a stat that literally blew my mind. Get this, mountains cover roughly a quarter of the Earth's entire land surface. A whole quarter. We totally take them for granted, treating them like scenic wallpaper, but they are actually these massive, dynamic players on the global stage. I really want to show you the secret, active life of these giant geological formations, because it turns out they are doing way more than just standing there looking majestic.
So, the big question that popped up in the research was this: how do mountains actually save nature? It's kind of a wild thought, right? I mean, it's super easy to think of nature as just the trees, the rivers, maybe the oceans, and all the animals. We don't usually put giant hunks of rock into the active contributor category. But actually, the deeper I read, the more I realized mountains are definitely not just scenic backdrops for our vacation selfies. They are highly active, ridiculously hardworking protectors of the Earth. Literally, if you strip them away, the entire ecosystem of the planet would just collapse. Okay, let's dive into exactly how they pull this off.
First off, we need to completely redefine how we look at them. We really got to start thinking of a mountain as a true guardian. And by that, I mean a provider of fresh water and a literal sustainer of life on Earth. They aren't passive at all. Their true purpose? To act as tireless guardians of the natural world. Just think about this for a second. Over half of the entire human population relies entirely on fresh water that originates up in mountain regions. Over half. Whether it's coming from massive glaciers or just seasonal snowmelt, all that water flows down into our rivers and reservoirs. They are working around the clock, 24/7, to keep everything flowing. Without that steady lifeline, entire cities and ecosystems downstream would just dry up entirely.
Let's look at their first real superpower, acting as a massive sanctuary. Because mountains are far from being these barren, empty stretches of granite. They're actually bustling, vibrant sanctuaries packed with incredibly diverse wildlife. Because of their sheer size and those rapidly changing altitudes, they create these perfect, totally isolated microclimates. It's basically like having a dozen different ecosystems stacked right on top of each other. This creates little hidden pockets where rare plants and animals can actually thrive, completely sheltered from the world below. Take the snow leopard, for example. These incredibly elusive cats rely entirely on that rugged, isolated terrain up in high-altitude mountain ranges just to survive and hunt, totally far away from human interference. It's a sanctuary in the truest sense of the word.
But, they do so much more than just provide housing for animals. They are literally nature's water filters. Honestly, it's almost magical when you think about the mechanics of it. These immense structures physically clean the environment around us. As rain falls or snow melts, the water doesn't just slide off like it hits a slide. It weaves its way through these dense mountain forests, which actually act like giant nets to trap airborne pollutants. Then, as the water percolates down through all those layers of rocky mountain soil, all those minerals physically scrub out the impurities. So by the time that water reaches us way down in the valleys and cities, the mountain has essentially scrubbed it clean. They are basically giant, invisible sponges purifying our most vital resource. So if we break it down, how exactly do mountains save nature? Well, it all comes down to a perfectly designed, interconnected system. First, you've got the vast forests covering their slopes, drawing in carbon dioxide and releasing fresh oxygen, right? So they're actively purifying our air. Second, like we just talked about, their geology physically filters and purifies our water. And because they perform these two massive, foundational jobs so flawlessly, the inevitable outcome is that they sustain life on Earth. It's not just some random list of cool features, it's a massive domino effect. Every single time we take a deep breath of fresh air or drink a glass of clean tap water, we likely have some mountain ecosystem hundreds of miles away to thank for doing all the heavy lifting upstream. And their guardianship gets way more physical than just filtering stuff. They actually act as giant shields against danger. Picture them standing tall like massive superheroes taking a punch for us. When violent weather systems, high winds, or harsh storms sweep across the continents from the oceans, they eventually smash into these towering peaks, and the mountains physically block them. They literally break apart hurricanes and massive storm fronts, absorbing the absolute brunt of those violent forces. So instead of a devastating hurricane sweeping unchecked thousands of miles inland, a mountain range will disrupt that wind flow and force the storm to dump its energy and rain early. This saves all those delicate ecosystems and human settlements hiding behind it. Just imagine for a second a totally flat, exposed plain. There's absolutely nothing to break the wind or slow down a storm, leaving the entire landscape incredibly vulnerable to extreme forces and natural disasters. A storm can just roll right through and flatten everything in its path. Now, contrast that with a peaceful, sheltered valley nestled safely behind a towering mountain range. The contrast is literally night and day. The mountains act as this ancient, unbreakable wall. Honestly, without these rocky guardians absorbing the impact of our planet's wildest weather, the flatlands where human civilization was built would just be battered constantly by extreme, unchecked natural forces. We totally owe our daily safety to their sheer stubbornness. And beyond just blocking storms, they also perform this invisible, totally breathtaking task. They act as the Earth's thermostat. Because they are so incredibly large and powerful, they actually help control the weather itself on a planetary scale. It's kind of hard to wrap our heads around, but these soaring peaks physically force warm, moist air upward. As that air rises, it cools rapidly and creates rain, a process that dictates rainfall patterns for thousands of miles. This creates what scientists call a rain shadow effect, which essentially decides which areas get lush green forests and which become dry, sandy deserts. They are basically the mechanical dials setting the temperature and humidity for massive regions of the entire globe. The mechanics of this are just this beautifully continuous process. By towering globally, mountains interact directly with massive atmospheric weather systems way up high in the sky. And this interaction naturally helps to regulate the Earth's entire climate. Just by standing there, reaching high into the stratosphere, they are quietly keeping our planet's climate balanced and livable. Dad, think about the mild breezes and regular rainfall we get right here at home during the summer. Even though we aren't living right on a peak, our local weather patterns are heavily influenced by how mountain ranges, sometimes thousands of miles away, are steering the jet stream and distributing heat. Our daily comfort is directly tied to their invisible work up there. Dad, I came across this one quote in the data that completely stopped me in my tracks today. It said, "As guardians of nature, mountains provide water and sustain life on Earth." It is incredibly profound, isn't it? It strips away all the complicated atmospheric science, the complex geologic, and all the geographical data, and it just leaves us with this beautiful, awe-inspiring truth. They are quite literally the reason we can sustain life. Every drop of water, every breath of clean air, every stabilized climate pattern, it all stems back to these quiet giants keeping watch over the planet. And that brings us to the absolute crucial takeaway of this whole explainer. Protecting mountains means protecting our future. It's really that simple. If they are the source of our clean air, our fresh water, our shelter, and our stable climate, then our very survival as a species is completely tied to ensuring they remain intact. But right now, they are facing immense threats. Rapid glacial melt from rising global temperatures is directly threatening that steady supply of fresh water I mentioned earlier, plus aggressive deforestation on mountain slopes destroys those natural water filters and wildlife sanctuaries. If those systems collapse, the domino effect downstream is going to be absolutely devastating for us. Which leaves us with this final lingering thought. If mountains are the guardians of Earth, who is guarding the mountains? It completely flips the script, doesn't it? They have spent millennia protecting us, providing for us, and sheltering us from the harshest elements of the universe. But right now, today, they actually need us. It's our ultimate responsibility to step up and protect the very things that protect us.